Okay, folks, welcome back. This is your Horror Host Inkarnate, reminding you that this is the Mind's Eye Inquisition. No, you know what? The hell with that. Welcome to the Mind's Eye Quarantine Zone. The ground rules are as follows. Check all spoilers at the gate, like, comment, subscribe, and oh yeah, one more thing.
Abandon all hope, ye who enter here.
All right, so your boy Incarnate is fresh on the scene, and I am back from the theater after having watched 28 Years Later, and oh my god, have I been waiting for this. If for no other reason, have I been waiting for a movie like this because, ooh, baby, 2025 has been one dumpster fire of a year as far as cinema is concerned, whether it's action movies, whether it's blockbusters, and certainly horror. Please believe that. So I had high expectations for this film, and I'm happy to say for it just took half of the year in order for a good movie to come out. Like, look, I liked Clown in a Cornfield, but I liked it for what it was. But this is finally something that delivers in terms of high expectations for it. So first off, I thought that the opening was handled very well. They learned the lesson, or I not say learned the lessons, but they carried on the mood from the trailer, so that this was still a factor in the opening of the film. They do a good job of hinting and lightly hinting at what it was that happened in the previous two films, and I'm very grateful for that. They're not heavy-handed, and that's key. That's important. But I don't like the phrase slow burn, because I think that slow burn is actually a malady to horror and film in general. But expect a slow opening. It is a day in the life beginning, and what I mean for that is the survivors, what it is that people who managed to make it through the rage virus outbreak, what it is that they have, what life is like for them dealing with life as they know it now. And to me, it's interesting. Obviously, this would take place in modern times, but it is interesting to see how far back humanity is thrust lifestyle-wise, almost to like medieval times where they use bow and arrows and they need, farmland. It just goes to show when you strip away all of our technology, this is what basic life is. Even things like bullets are considered not prime real estate, but items that need to be preserved as much as possible. But I like the day in the life beginning to the film, as well as the way that it was able to handle tone. Now, what is, as the trailer suggests from the previews, is that the father and son duo are journeying back into the wilderness. Now, this is greeted with welcomes by certain members of the farming community, the compound, but at the same time, it's greeted with equal parts welcome and warning. Right when they're at the gate, this isn't much of a spoiler, but right when they're at the gate, let's just say the father and son are reminded that, hey, they will be welcomed back if they return. And they're shown what it looks like when those who have not made it back, how it is that they are treated in two rather grim and foreboding ways. But I like that dynamic to it. Like, yes, it's celebrated by the compound, by the farming community, but at the same time, there is a warning that goes along with that. So, like I said, the film uses, how can I put it, a clever means of visual imagery to show us what it's like, or what had previously transpired in the previous two installments. And it does so. First off, it's appreciated that they do that for old fans of the franchise, as well as potential new viewers that are only experiencing this franchise through this movie. So it's appreciated for that reason, and it does so without heavy exposition. Oof, man. Credit to them for foregoing that. Now, usually I detest random scenes of flashbacks just being blared at the audience, because usually they are the visual equivalent of jump scares and are often accompanied by loud noises. But this film instead manages to subtly weave evocative imagery from the previous films, and not only to remind the audience of past events, but manages to pull this off so that it further sets the mood instead of distracting from the current events unfolding. Again, very well handled. The use of foreshadowing is also very much appreciated. Things aren't just shown at you just, oh, hey, that's nice diversion, or hey, that's a nice distraction. No, you may not realize that you're being shown something that's going to have ripple effects afterwards. Another thing that I appreciated was how you have even though they're not zombies, the infected have been woven into the ecosystem of this wilderness that humans are returning to, as well as the establishment of something of a hierarchy. So I'll get to that momentarily. The father and son dynamic I enjoyed. I felt that when they go hunting, and obviously they would go hunting, I felt like the strategies that they were using were very much they very much served to immerse you in this story. You can very well believe that people would be acting this way, they would have practiced this ahead of time. The breathing when firing a bow and arrow, what's the other word that I'm looking for? The strategy when it is that they have to play a defensive posture. It very much brings you into this world, and I greatly appreciate that. I think that it's imperative to show moments like that because it makes it more real, and the realistic depiction goes far to ground this world. So, in addition to that, like I mentioned, this further serves to ground this life that the survivors must endure. It's grounded very much in reality. Another aspect that I very much enjoyed is the style and the cinematography. Top marks for that. That's something that so very often people forget when it comes to films. And that also helps to ramp up the tension when the camera is slowly moving around a space or around a room, and it's that creeping sensation where something that the audience might see, but the characters that we're following surely don't. That is used very well in this movie. Again, top marks to Danny Boyle. I distinctly remember when the Nostalgia Critic was reviewing, I think, with The Walking Dead as a whole, he mentioned how the environment itself is trying to kill you, meaning zombies just coming out of the forest, but the characters that we're watching don't see them. I always rolled my eyes with that because it's giving a form of media more credit than it deserves. No, the environment is not coming alive and coming to get you. It's clearly dead corpses in that show. However, in 28 years later, it is interesting to see how these infected have integrated into nature, and it's not just that they behave the same; they will look different. They will stand out in that regard, and the time that the film takes to show that, it it's really unnerving because it's believable that life goes on. No, I said that wrong. Life goes on. So it is interesting to see that the thought put into that. It's not just zombies in the wild or of infected humans in the wild. No, they actually take the time to show how it is that this would happen, and how they're almost able to camouflage into this environment because they have integrated so well. So the ecosystem that I mentioned, as well as the hunting strategies, they're very essential in, say it with me, class, world building. It's not a generic, been there, done that, post-apocalyptic, Terminator, Resident Evil movies, Book of Eli. It's not generic. It is obviously a forest environment that serves as a setting for this movie, but it feels uniquely its own. And it's not gray washout and colors are brown. Oh my god, that was a thing that got tiresome with video games in the mid 2000s with the onset of the HD generation to home gaming. I'd like to take this opportunity to manage expectations. This is a more of a character focused film as opposed to story driven movie. So expect that going in. Don't expect bombastic action and every other scene filled with hordes of the raging infected. So while you'll have scattered groups of anorexic subhumans, you won't find an army of Ariana Grandes, is what I'm telling you. So with the exception of one minor lull within the middle of the movie, and again, it's one lull of time, and it's isolated to just one passage or one scene that feels like it drags on a little bit too long, but otherwise the pacing is very well done in the movie. I don't like thinking zombies. To me, that's when you've hit a narrative dead end, pun intended, with whatever zombie story you're attempting to tell. It shows to me that you've run out of ideas, and like I said in my preview to 28 Years Later, George Romero broke the rules of his own franchise and did that twice. Once with Day of the Dead, I think Bub is the name of the zombie, and then they did that again with Land of the Dead, where if you have zombies firing weapons. I hate that. I hate the premise of thinking zombies because they're supposed to be brain dead. Like, no, it doesn't make sense, and it never will. And it just goes to show how you've run out of ideas, so now they need to, like, coordinate or something. The zombies need to be pack hunters, which I think is stupid. But what I do like is the thought of a primal infection. What I mean by that is a disease that peels back the layers of humanity and civilization to return humans to the wilderness as one of the wild. That I can get behind because that makes sense. And I only realized it now. Similar to how the humans in the farming colony, they need to live with the layers of technology peeled back so that they have to now deal, they are modern humans, but without the benefit, the convenience of modern technology. They have to revert back to a medieval age, like literally 1,000 years ago. Similarly, the zombies or the infected here do the same thing, where it's not a case where they are intelligent, where they've gained like sentience, but it is more of a state of just a wild human, an animal human. So I very much appreciate that. And because of the nature of the rage virus, you can expect that. But this movie, I guess because we've been taken out of the setting of the metropolis, like in 28 Weeks Later, and now we're dealing with a literal forest. I guess this opens my eyes more to what the rage virus does to humanity. It resets us back to a human animal. So I did mention the stereotypes that come with your typical standard zombie fare. So with this particular movie, I liked that I mentioned the hierarchy before. They kind of did this with that really crappy Zack Snyder Army of the Dead movie where they had a queen. In this movie, nothing like that, but there is a hierarchy amongst the infected, and it's treated well. It's given the time to breathe, and you understand and identify, and it makes sense. It's not like it's able to grow tentacles, or it's not a class of the infected where it feels like they have a standout character just for the sake of it, or it's not like telepathic or something stupid like that. But the way that they portrayed in this movie is how you do it right. Army of the Dead clearly is not. Next, we have the other cliche that happens in these types of, or in zombie movies in general, where you have the genetic savior, meaning you'll have someone who is immune to the outbreak. So that's played off in a way that makes sense here in this movie. And again, I appreciate that they're not relying on exposition. I like that you as the audience get where they're going, and you appreciate that. You are grateful that they give you just enough of the visuals that you can piece together what is going on. And I very much appreciate that. I thought that worked in the film's favor. There is a scene straight out of Dawn of the Dead, but out of the Dawn of the Dead remake, which I don't believe, I don't think that was an intentional ripoff. I'm not saying it's an accidental one either, but they expand upon what you would see from that movie in a very clever way. So another thing that struck me, and when I was choosing the screensaver, the wallpaper that you're seeing now, something felt off about it, because based from the trailers, not only are you seeing zombies not in a city like you're seeing from this video screensaver, but you would see zombies based on the trailer for 28 years later out in a forest, whereas here they're obviously in a city. But another thing that struck me was that this movie 28 years later has horror in the day, which I always applaud movies for that. If you're able to pull that off, if you're able to tell your story, get your scares in, moments of tension during daylight, you're really onto something. And 28 weeks later mostly takes place at night after the outbreak resurges. So that's another thing that works in this movie's favor. So I really enjoyed this movie. I highly recommend it. I hope I've done a good enough job of avoiding spoilers. And man, again, manage your expectations going in. This is much more character focused than story driven. There are story beats where this incident leads to that, which is good. You should have that, not just, a plot that can feel plotting, or fetch quests, which are horrible in video games and even less likable in movies. Or it can just feel like the characters are along for the ride. They're not plot drivers. So it is a movie that may start out story driven and it shifts to character focus, and this is something that I always felt that was a knock against zombie movies, where it feels as though they would intentionally go with screenwriters, directors. For the longest time during the zombie craze, it just felt like, okay, we don't have to explain where we can go with zombies, because then we don't have to be bothered with explaining the origin of the creature or whatever monster movie we're telling. And often, you wouldn't have to be burdened with creating an interesting look for your movie monster. You wouldn't have to create a personality such a like that of a Hellraiser, that of Freddy, that of Candyman, because the threat comes from the Horde. So you'll how can I put it? You can't expect a Walking Dead level of massive zombie hordes attacking your characters. There are certainly groups and, for lack of a better phrase, pack hunters, but don't go into this expecting an entire football team or football stadium worth of infected chasing you. There are pockets of them, but that's not what this movie is about, and that's not what it's trying to be. So I very much enjoyed this movie. I highly recommend it. To me, forget Sinners, forget Final Destination. For me, 28 years later is the best movie of 2025, and paired with Clown in a Cornfield, and that might sound like an oddball choice, but it's supposed to be. Those are the two movies for me that not only begin good horror movies in 2025, but good summer horror films. I hope that this film is well received. I hope that people tune out in droves to watch it. It's kind of cool that this film, this franchise can return in style, can return with quality control, and hey, it can play with the big boys as a summer blockbuster. It just needs your support in order to reach that level. So again, this was a not so much a surprise because I was optimistic going in, but definitely well received, definitely high marks, definitely highly recommended from your horror host Inkarnate. So if you're at all interested, be sure to check out my precaution, my preview before I left the theater. Check out my asinine Resident Evil 9 video that I did, reaction to the trailer and my thoughts on the return to Raccoon City. And this isn't the only time I will be streaming today. I will have a video coming out shortly on my thoughts regarding Predator Filler of Killers. And I'm going to be live streaming later on to play Rip Out on the video game side. Therefore, I've been your horror host Inkarnate, reminding you, I ain't just a big deal, I'm the real deal. Resigned to your fate? Time to subscribe to your fears.
Warn your friends. Warn everyone.